G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute, no longer a hobo, no, I'm a bushranger, and I'm joined by C the Sixth and Cyrus Frost. How you boys doing?
I'm all right.
Doing good.
Yeah, so as we tend to do, we've been talking about the banner measurement for a while, and there's some things that we'd like to go with you today, and possible repercussions not just for the Birchman, but maybe some other ships down the line. But I think we'll kind of kick this off. Excuse me, with the introduction of the privateer, and basically it's kind of possibly going to have some unforeseen consequences on the Banner Man. So the last we kind of heard in regards to the Banner Man was when Disco told us that it had grown in size to be Polaris size. Now that kind of puts it in a capital class tier to go along with the privateer. But I'll let Osiris take over. Osiris, tell us what repercussions that might have for the Banner Man.
Well, essentially, the Banu Merchantman's very big and very slow if it's going to be a capital class ship. And when it was originally pitched to us, right, it was sold as sort of a blockade runner. And now you compare that to a big, slow capital ship, and you also have the situation where it has an unfavorable cargo comparison to similarly priced, or actually the whole C is $100 less, and it's got more cargo.
Yeah.
So the BMM's just it's got a couple of issues with it that make it not such a great value.
Yeah. For me, the privateer, like we've heard things from some of the contacts we have where they've said that the thing was like concepted in like a ridiculous short amount of time. Like one of the things I was heard and suggested it was concepted in 4 days. Um, and we've never seen them do a big variant of a big ship like that. And to me, it does seem a bit rushed. I don't know about you guys. It seems a little bit unnecessary. It does not seem like it's worth $200 over the original. And really, they've also stated that you can turn Krakens backwards and forwards between the two. So I'm I'm not a biggest fan of how that was kind of presented. But in regards to the Merchantman, like it clearly now pushes the Merchantman back into the middle role of a merchant ship, pushing it down the line. Um, and I also think due to its size that it may shrink because of that. And I think the thing that really kind of triggered this for me, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but when they announced it's going back in for a third round of concepts, um, uh, that really kind of triggered in me. Well, why are they reconcepting it? What would have changed since last time it was concepted? And that's when I started thinking about stuff. And we've come on the privateer. Um, Sia, what is there any effects that you could see that from the privateer leaning on the Mitchman or?
Well, first, it's really hard to talk because they're shooting off fireworks right now. So bear with me if you hear anything in the background, everybody. I'm on push to talk right now. But I mean, I'm still a little sad because the Benny Merchantman was one of those ships that was still large that I would recommend to people if they wanted a large ship that would give them a lucrative amount of cash if you use it right. It was this ship for the longest time. I would tell people buy this one over the 890 jump if you wanted a larger ship that was able to make good money because
Mm,
at the time they just seemed like they were the same size. This one had like more cargo. It had it's concepted with the lounges, the conference rooms and all that stuff. It just had that alien feel to it.
mm,
And now, well, when it came out, and we discussed this on Buyer's Remorse Execute, but
yeah,
when
we
it
did.
came out, it was my heart just sank because a lot of people have been waiting for the ship for a long time. And the fact that they're reconcepting it because now things are going to change, it like I felt I I mean, I know it's just a game, but I kind of felt their pain, you know what I mean?
Mm,
I can't really put my finger on it about how I feel because the issue is those both those ships aren't out yet. So all we really can do is speculate until the developers actually tell us what the Banu Merchantman's going to have, its roles, its capabilities, what changed. I really can't make an analysis on it until they give us like, at least a
mm.
tablespoon full of information.
It would obviously be almost a double win for CIG too, because they know a lot of people have picked up the ship on the advisory of so many people saying it looks like it's going to increase in price. And I think it's taken me a little while. It's taken me a little while to realize that it's possibly changed because of the privateer. And I think, like, if they were to turn around and say, "Oh, it's shrunk again," the justification would be, "Oh, because then it's more like the original concept." And they've done that before with other ships, rolling stuff back. We've seen things like the Redeemer and a few other ships where they've
Yep.
gone back, like
The
even the
Carrack,
Vanguard and
didn't it?
the
It got big
Carrack.
and then it went back to its
Yeah,
original
yeah.
size.
So we know there are precedents for it before, and I think the Banu Merchantman probably would have stayed as a capital sized ship, but I'm getting the feeling, and I could be wrong. This is just speculation. This episode, that where the privateer is, it signifies that they don't need two capital sized ships. Again, the Polaris being capital, and they're saying it's growing to be a capital. I get a feeling it might go back down to more like the Hull C or something like that, so a little smaller. But yeah, double win for CIG because they get to kind of artificially reduce the price, so they kind of slightly screw over those people that picked up a Banu Merchantman. Basically, it means people have to put in more money into the game to get to those big ships they're hoping to use the Banu Merchantman as a stepping stone for. So they kind of get to prevent it on two fronts.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that plays into it at all? Is financial a draw thing for CIG, or is it just happens to be how the design's gone?
one thing I would like to add that you actually brought up is the dang, I lost it, but is the fact that, like, the Banu Merchantman. Well, okay, it kind of ties into what Osiris said with the Carrack. I find it funny that the Carrack was originally concepted. It grew in size. The price increased with it too,
Mm-hmm.
because, oh, it's a bigger ship, we're going to increase the price, or whatever their logic was at that
Yeah,
time. And then it got smaller, and then the price stayed the same,
well, that's true.
and then it got released, and then the price went up again.
Yeah.
And so with the Banu Merchantman, it's going to be, we're going to not only give you a ship now that completely seems to blow the ship out of the water, because now this, instead of this being the top of the line uh type of ship that's good in its profession, it's now going to be the medium one.
Mm,
It's like the price value decreased overall because of the privateer, but
yeah.
now when it finally does come out, they're still going to increase the price anyway.
Well,
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's based on the popularity rather than the size. They know that they can squeeze money out of people for this ship. If
mm,
it's not a
I
disaster
can
when they
drink to that.
release it.
mm. I'm just going to kind of throw this out there. Like, I think they might make it a little bit more like the Reclaimer, so it'll only go up by $50. So that seems a bit more reasonable to me. So it'll probably, end up around $400. And there are a lot of people, like, I know we, even for the longest time, we've talked about it, but things change. And this is an ever evolving game, and it's taken us a bit of time to realize the effects of the privateer. Now we've been mulling over this for a couple of months, but like it's just kind of hard to know it's accurate. Do you know what I mean? So that's why this is a kind of a speculation episode. But I guess we're kind of asking you guys, what do you think? Like, what effects do you think the privateer has on the Banu Merchantman? Is this a possibility? Is it going to shrink, or do you think that they'll leave them as both capitals? Um, yeah, I'd like to get your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Um,
Well, there is, if I may just
no,
say
no, go
one
ahead.
thing real quick before we go on. So, the one thing I don't like about us speculating is, well, I shouldn't say that. I enjoy speculating a lot. I think it's fun, but especially when we're right. But anyways, I digress. Let's talk about the positives of this. So,
Mm,
even either or, it said, okay, so if it increases in size by a little bit, cool. If it decreases in size, oh well. But the one thing for sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but the one thing that this thing does have over the privateer is the ability to still traverse down to an atmospheric world, land, do its thing, and then go back into space. Where the privateer, it's not really going to have that luxury because of size and weight. So that is one thing I feel like the privateer is going to be more of, hey, you're going to be fixated to space. And if you go down, then you're going to need something like an Argo SRV. Well, obviously more than one Argo SRV to get you back up into to a higher atmosphere where it's thinner, where your thrusters might be more efficient to overcome the gravity or wherever it is. So that is one thing. If it decreases, then obviously cargo is going to go down. But then we still have that ability to retain our atmospheric flight, I should say, because it's still a big boy.
Yeah. So the other thing that we've been talking about, and I'll kind of I'll let you do this because this is your idea. So this is harkening back to the Merchantman Clipper ship idea and the thoughts. One of the things that you brought up on how they could make it get that feel back. So I'll let you run with this one.
Sure. So, you recall from the original sales pitch that the Banu Merchantman was sort of sold to us as a blockade runner, and we don't really know what that looks like in CIG's eyes. It could be some more of that marketing flavor text that doesn't really mean anything, but we know that they have implemented blockades in the game in the form of quantum interdiction. So, uh, this kind of stemmed from a conversation in our Discord several weeks ago, and I kind of just took the idea and ran with it that maybe the Merchantman could, in this new concept, this new reconcepting phase, acquire like a sort of quantum interdiction suppression device. And I mean, we can talk about what that looks like. Obviously, it can't be implemented as an I win button, but I think that if it's done in a way that's balanced with the other systems in the game, it could really give the BMM a unique role among all of the cargo ships in the verse.
I
That
already know
would
what to call
by
it.
itself be of value.
Before we discuss it, can you elaborate on it? Because tell us how you were talking about the power consumption thing, because I think that's really important for people to get a grasp of on the idea you have.
Sure, yeah. So my idea would be that this device would take a tremendous amount of power to operate, and so you'd have to basically you wouldn't just run it all the time, or you wouldn't run it when you jump to quantum. You would get pulled out first, and then you'd have to shut off maybe your shields, maybe your life support, whatever. You'd have to make on the spot engineering decision about what power you'd be sacrificing to power this thing, and then this would take a minute to spool up and overcome the quantum interdiction, and then you'd be able to jump back into quantum.
So the way I kind of reiterated it back to Osiris when he explained it to me, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong here again, but I said it's almost like an EMP for interdiction device. So it spools up and you set it off, and it just stops the interdiction device for a certain amount of time, which allows you to warp out.
Yeah, in a manner of speaking, something like that.
Yeah.
So I okay, so this ties in directly with Eve. So they had this thing called the warp stabilizer. So this is a quantum stabilizer where the QED or quantum I think was I forgot what the E stand for, but it was a quantum like interdiction
Enforcement.
device. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Quantum enforcement device, QED, that the QED. So I mean, if it's first it's just targeting the quantum drive. So obviously, it's making it sort of unstable enough to where it's shutting off. So the quantum stabilizer would be stabilizing the frequency, the harmonization between the drive in the drive itself, so that it can function properly. But another thing, Osiris, instead of it sacrificing a system, another thing that could be a huge issue is that if you're trying to be a blockade runner, I mean, one thing you could do is once it comes on, the spool time could be elongated. So, like, even it's either you can power down a system, or I was thinking like one thing in Eve is that it messes with your ability to fit things in your ship. So I'm thinking like, would you guys think it could? Again, this is pure speculation. Obviously, I've said nothing about this whatsoever,
Mm.
but like increasing the spool up time or the calculation time or something like that? Or do you think that would be too much to negate the purpose of it being a blockade runner?
Well, the way kind of Osiris pitched it to me would be it is something that they would know you've turned on to counter the quantum interdiction, and they would see it on their sensors, or it would already instantly have some kind of effect on the quantum interdiction device, which would basically mean
When you talked about
if they wanted to stop you, they would have to attack you. So it basically closes the window they have to attack you. So instead of them just forever being able to quantum enforce you, it puts a limit on the amount of time they can do it. So, like, let's say it gives them 2 minutes to get in, so they could still attack
I mean,
you
I
and
know it's
disable
this.
you.
It's a similar concept in Eve.
Mm,
It's still a similar concept in Eve. I
yeah,
know exactly what he's saying, and I know
but
exactly what it's supposed to do because it would happen to me all the time in Eve when I was traversing through nullsec, and they would do gate camps.
Sorry. So what
Yeah.
are you going to say before?
I mean, I was just going to kind of follow up on Sears' point about the increasing your spool time. I don't know how. I haven't played Eve, and I generally understand the concept of the game, but I don't know how they implemented the warp stabilizer. My concern in thinking this through is that if you can just push a button before you go to quantum and avoid being pulled out altogether, then it's really going to break that sort of gameplay, and then the
That's fair.
VMM is going to become the meta.
Yeah.
So I think to get around that, you want to travel as you normally do in any other ship and be susceptible
Mm.
to getting pulled out of quantum if you happen
That's fair.
upon an ambush. And then this is just a tool that lets you get out of the trap because everybody else has to fight their way out.
Yeah. So I actually think it's not unfair because it just basically puts a time limit on the time they have to stop you. It's not stopping it indefinitely. It
Yeah,
just
right.
goes instead of them going, we can run this all day and you can't leave. It basically just limits it to you've got, I don't know, you can pick a time. So 2 minutes. You've got 2 minutes to try and stop us, or we're out of here. And then, as you said, another counter to that be you might not even have shields. So if you get out of it, you might get out of it completely damaged. So it's it'd be interesting. Yeah, and that's even if they do
that's
make
fair.
it a counter addiction mechanic. So that's actually a bigger discussion. Like we're suggesting it for the banner merchant might be a way to make it back into that blockade runner type analogy. But like, could this be a thing down the line for other ships? So quantum interdiction's not as big and kind of, well, as it stands at the moment, it just locks everything down. Is it too powerful? Does that mean they've already mentioned that they're about to put it in bigger ships? If they have one of those in an Idris, how are you going to get away from it?
Right. Now, there's no counter to it right now.
Yeah.
What they've said is that you have to be careful if you're in like a Mantis, you could pull out an Idris and you could get completely smashed. But you could also have 6 Idrises right behind you if you pull out an Idris and a Mantis. So that's not really
Mm,
a counter. If you bring enough guns to the fight, you're kind of going to be okay.
yep.
What I've suggested is going to be a counter to that gameplay.
Mm. All right, I think we'll kind of wrap it up here. The last thing I want to say is that the thing about the shrinking of the banner merchantman, we've also started to apply this to some other ships. Some of the people like this discussion started in the Discord and it's moved on, but someone brought up the possibility of the Crucible. What if they applied this to the Crucible and the Crucible shrank from being a capital ship to be the middle repair ship and they built something above it? We've had discussions about this before that you would have heard on the show with things like the Starfarer as well, then possibly putting in one of the bigger Crusader ships from in lore. So there is potential here for this to be potentially the way they go. And I'd like to hear from you guys in the comments. What do you think about the banner measurement possibly shrinking, the interdiction device, and the possibility of other ships that they've mentioned shrinking as well? Because it's not unheard of. It's happened before. It may happen again. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that because it's just something that we've been mulling over with other people in the Discord, and it is a little concerning. But I can see them doing it because of those the dollar signs. We'll put it that way. Is there anything you guys want to add before we head off?
This just ties in with buying remorse.
Oh,
Called
yeah.
it.
Yeah, it does. All right, Cyrus, you got anything to say, buddy?
Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, use our referral code if you're new to Star Citizen. Join us in the Discord.
And I'll say happy 4th of July to our American watchers as well, because I know you guys are both celebrating that today. So yeah, happy have a good one, and not in a bad place, because a lot of stuff I'm hearing on YouTube today is you guys are not in a good way. But let's hope we all get through this, because I'm hoping to get back to a bit of normalcy. All right. He's been C6. He's been Cyrus Frost. I've been Executing, as he said. Subscribe, like all that jazz, and yeah, please let us know what you think of what we said today in the show. I'll catch you guys in the next one.